Hello again. Let us continue to talk freely about M.C. Escher, um, one of our artist prophets or artist apostles, in that the apostle is the messenger, apostolos, or the prophet is the one prophetic, the one able to see beyond the present to predict or anticipate the future, not because of some mysterious thing, mysterious beyond human thing, but rather because of an awareness of metaphysical truths, which themselves uh, are unstuck in time. They know the idea is that the artist is the one who knows a metaphysical message, which is infinite, um, and because of this requires art's infinity, including abstract world, in order to express and to pass into others. And so um, it is this one, the one who knows this message, which can be the artist prophet, because when you know a metaphysical message like this, it is something that is at all times and in all places. That is, if we know something about now, we can analogously know something about a future condition. You could say, well, if this happens in the future, then this will happen in the future. Um, there are different types of truth, and this is one of them. There are truths that will exist in unconditionally, let's say. The truths the truths which emanate from or are implications of such an overarching message, such an all-pervading message, are truths that are going to exist in every condition, and so they're unconditional. Um, so we see these artists, these links in the chain, whether it's Bach or Shakespeare or Van Gogh or Ovid or M.C. Escher, um, many others, Dali, Picasso included. We see these all as artist prophets or I see them as artist prophets, artist apostles, and individuals which most particularly, or which use art for its most particular purpose. That is to allow infinity, these metaphysical messages, which include this additional aspect of the world, infinity, these unknowable, uncontrollable, indefinable, these manifestations of infinity in our world, which humanity has always taken account of, and which humanity recognizes as being our surroundings, apart from part of our surroundings, apart from the reality of irrefutable particularity. In fact, those things are reconciled should we achieve the religious function as irrefutable particularity or uniqueness being a way of being irrefutably particularly related to a limitless, endless amount of others, which themselves are always changing. So we see there's a limitless in the specific. Everything is always irrefutably particular, absolutely specific. Yet that truth is always changing because it's based on relationships to an ever-changing plexus of others. So we see that these artists, in particular, are the ones who um, use art for this purpose of mapping not only their infinitely particular, irrefutably particular, unique understanding of the universe, but also to map and track infinity itself in many different ways, to show in a plexus of abstract relationships the properties and qualities, which are the meanings and sources and reflections, benefits, um, relevant subjects of such a metaphysical journey and explanation. And um, we see they all come from or realize this through different aspects. Some of them through dream, some of them through the written word, some of them through the 2D, and they all also in different works and overall spend different amounts of time investing in different facets or more or less explicitly discussing or engaging certain aspects of this. But the thing is that all of these artists enter through youthful process, through learning, through their own rigorous, painstaking effort. They enter into artistic process. They spend so much time in the abstract world trying beyond knowing the ultimate reason for it, that eventually being in that world of art embodying the implications of infinity, actually embodying and consistently, inevitably providing evidence, empirical evidence of the implications of infinity. So the art itself is all energetic variables and relationships. It's all in the mind. These are all non-explicit, non-mundane properties and qualities. It is um, the creations itself, which are just colors or distances or lines or shapes or sounds. These are all energetic variables and energetic relationships between those variables, which in the artist process not only prove themselves consequential, not only does the artist see the effect, the potential effect and consequence of coming into different degrees of interaction with this energy itself, with their own thoughts, but they also see that they inevitably enter into processes across time which are unknowable, unanticipatable, which by allowing themselves to come into interaction with the beyond self, inevitably in artistic process, find the empirical evidence that that interaction with the beyond, with what we do not know, treating all things of all types, whether it's a thought, whether it's the unknown itself, the indefinable, um, show these to be consequential. And so these artists find this out, and all of a sudden it's that metaphysical message and the snowballing implications of it, the increasing confirmation of it, the more autonomously justifiable its implications, the more inspired they come by the interaction which reflects it. They come into an interaction with the world around them, with the artistic process, which reflects it, and they gain more and more nourishment. And so they begin to realize it is this abstract world that they've been in so long that embodies, reflects, and allows into its process the infinity which they've found, which is so nourishing. And they realize that this world, the abstract world, acts as our world acts, gains truth and meaning, um, treats things and reveals uniqueness and embodies irrefutable particularity, just as the world, the physical mundane, does when we know infinity. So this world, the abstract world, is an infinity, including one. And some of these artist prophets or artist apostles, these are the ones who realize this through the artistic process, gain this meaningful, um, nourishing message that they realize all humans seek and are capable of, because it's our species particular which wants to reconcile with this message and to engage this aspect of the world, not just the unique one, but also the limitless one, but which we find ourselves contradicting once we realize at about 15 years of age our uniqueness. We find ourselves seemingly isolated, or that this infinity or limitless or endlessness in the circle or all these other approachable manifestations of infinity, we find this to be somehow in contradiction to the self. These artists find this message, and they have the technique to then enter back into the abstract world that they realize they need in order to express such limitless, irrefutable, infinitely particular message that also needs to track infinity. Um, and they enter back into that process knowing even more how it works and why it works. They know how to treat the world and what types of interactions in that abstract world will pass the message, how meaning is derived, how information is passed, how truth is derived in an infinity, including world. And so they most powerfully, of course, with their technique developed while they were unconsciously pursuing this thing which they recognized as so potential holding, this art, these artistic techniques. They didn't know why, but now they have the meaning and the reason to use it, the understanding of this type of world and how this type of world walks and acts and talks, how it derives meaning, how and why it's attached to consciousness and unconsciousness. And so they begin to use this world to pass their messages, and they become the artist prophet. They see that the function of art is part of the function of religion. The function of religion to allow any path to a any entity which is um, attempting to offer to humanity a path to reconciling, to recognizing, to justifying infinity and its implications in a uniqueness marked consciousness. They see that art is a necessary part of that. This is the means to expression which allows it. So inside the religious function, art, whether it's text, images, symbols, iconography, um, sound, music, uh, any sort of theater or every literature, every form of story and myth. These are all the art necessary. The That particular means to expression which allows infinity, the metaphysical message, which it is the function of religion to pass, to be included into human expression. And so these artist prophets, they see from one angle or another that for Dali and Shakespeare, that dream, this thought itself is so consequential. In the word Shakespeare, Ovid, Christ, they all see that, oh, if I preserve, if energy is equivalent and I preserve my unique thought in the written word, then it can truly interact. And so, where in infinity, where all interaction of every type is equal and potential for meaning and value, so I can actually live unstuck in time, Vonnegut, unstuck in time. I could live and interact now, or interact as my recorded self in the world, um, across time. Um, so we see they all find it from different angles. Bach is littered with tracking of infinity everywhere. His works are maps of metaphysical messages. They are these massive dictums. Even the two-part, not even the two-part inventions. The two-part inventions specifically, most clearly, just are absolute uh, top-level tomes to infinity. They're just speaking the properties of this metaphysical message, one after the other. Um, but for today, I'm looking at the way that M.C. Escher found this in prints, in drawing, in wood engraving. M.C. Escher realizes through years of just trying to master technique that in the 2D, the cross intersecting lines produce indefinableness, which is actually limitless opportunity. At the point where the cross intersects in the 2D, at the very center in the 2D, we can't tell if it comes from the top, bottom, left, or right. And in fact, it comes from all of them, and none of them. It's a duality or bothness. It's a manifestation of infinity in our world. Um, and we see that this is the beginning for Escher. And just like Escher saw in unconsciously, he didn't know why, and he says it in his introduction to his works, but he didn't know why. He was just going after to just trying to master technique and giving everything he could to that. We have this idea from history, from our traditions, from of morality and ethics, that we can have a sense of wanting to be a better person, especially if we're raised well. We're told this is the way to be. We don't know why, but we feel the wish. We wish. I do wish to be good. I wish to succeed and to give everything that you've said. And so we give, but we don't know what to give to. We recognize something in art. He recognized something in this drawing, um, in that said, this is give everything of yourself to this. Keep trying to do this. And so he says the best I could do is try to master this technique. And along the way and through the process, he finds the message that the techniques would be used for. And similar to how he saw this in art, I also saw this in his work. He was actually the one that was the first. It was not the first, but it was his collection of works were the one in which I saw so explicitly, so clearly, without a doubt, that this is something to invest my mind in, to observe, to keep with me, to walk with, to continue to watch and watch and watch, to exhaust my energy on, to allow my unconscious to absorb, to deal with, to write about, to think about, and it really helped to synthesize a lot of my fundamental premises into comprehending um, the metaphysics that would come from them. So both of us, him through art, me through him, but also, and we both have many other influences, but um, we find some paths. So for him, it was the 2D. We were saying in the 2D, there's this point, and it's really, I call it like Escher's point of opportunity. Um, we'll look through some of the works in a second and see some clear examples. But he slowly, from doing this, then starts to realize that in each of his techniques, in each different subject, in each different thing or project or facet of the world, one or many of the implications, suggestions, sources, benefits, ways of reflecting this metaphysical message that he suddenly finds, the key to heaven. He finds this he finds in the symbol of the cross, in the 2D, in the reality of the indefinableness in the 2D, that invariably, definitely, there's infinity, limitless potential in our world. And him seeing that in the real world, but also then in the abstract world, realizes that he can then use the abstract world in order to show over and over again in powerful, clear ways. There is infinity, guys. It's on the piece of paper. Look at it. And then in that piece of paper, in that abstract world, show all of the potential, show the sources, show the implications, show the developments and potential thoughts and suggestions of this discovery, which is being embodied by the works. He's showing you very clearly infinity exists. Look at it. The staircase keeps going around and around a circle. You already knew the circle, but you forgot. What are the implications of this? How real is this? How much is this in your world? And so from all of it, even sitting here today, looking at Escher's works, he is interacting. It's his mind that made that. That's him. As if energy is equivalent, that is him, and he is interacting with us now. It's why this video is rolling. It's why we're talking. It's changing us all. He's really interacting with us now. And not only is that there, but he shows that there is limitless potential in the irrefutably particular. This is a print. It is made of ink. You're holding it in your hands on a piece of paper. And he begins to go through um, all of the implications that, for instance, we can look, as humans, we can look at just a series of lines and some shading. And from this, from the seemingly meaningless, begins to arise an identification with it. That is a unique. If we are selfless, we can look into something which is not, and something that's seemingly meaningless, and no matter what it is, will begin to arise the irrefutably particular way that we are related to it at that time. And from that, from looking into that shadow, from seeing that thing that we can't quite identify, from our imperfect senses, from that seemingly meaningless thing, from that Cyrillic writing that we can't understand, suddenly arises a thought, a meaning, a meaningful identification, the irrefutably particular way that we're related to that thing only at that moment. And from that begins to arise, from that patchwork begins to arise a shape. And that shape is, again, gains another meaningful relationship to us, and that becomes a thing, and so on and on goes the process. The things gain endless meaning and become our truth, become a magical reality that is an interconnected one, a one where each specific thing, regardless of what it is, seemingly meaningless, very important, tiny, large, energetic, material, physical, mundane, thought itself, light itself, these all find themselves to have an equally limitless potential. And so in all of his works, we see different um, facets, different truths, different implications of he's using each of the techniques and each of the subjects to show a different aspect of the effect of the all redefining message that he found. And we see in his work in particular, infinity is explicitly the focus. And in his works, he always leaves clues, very clear, explicit clues, often in words, in the titles, in the settings included, the characters included, that it is his goal to talk to you about this, to talk to you about religion and how religion is just a path to recognizing and reconciling self with infinity and the implications of that and the manifestations of that in your reality. So I'm just going to open to a couple pages and just quickly um, show you. For instance, just like quickly look at reptiles. You know, you could look at this on your own, but you know, you look at the little notebook at the bottom, and does that say Job? I think it does. But more so, we see this in the 2D, in his 2D, um, uh, like the symmetry drawings, or like the regular division of a plane. We see the reptiles there, um, in that 2D on the piece of paper, and he shows us that it is in there. It is in the boldness that there are lines which are both the end of one thing's leg and the beginning of the other thing's leg, and that's actually a manifestation of infinity. That's a point of transition, which is what Hermes represented, also what Puck represents. But that point of transition, that line, which is both part of one thing and a part of the other, is an indefinable. It's the point where we can't say which one it is. It's actually both. And it's from that awareness that there is boldness or infinity or duality in our world, that suddenly from that we can come into interaction with anything. We can come into interaction with them. We can come into interaction with the book, literature. We can come into interaction with the pens or the liquids or the geometric shapes. This is the open book. We can come into interaction with nature or our own processes. And what we find is that from all of these things arise life. Breathe. They begin to breathe. They begin to actually speak and breathe and move and take our channels around and move about and speak to us and affect our process by recognizing in the 2D these, whether it's the cross being the infinity, or for instance this layering in the symmetry pattern. This is another manifestation of infinity, showing us without a doubt there are things that are indefinable that are both. And so in all things, in ever changing potential, we see that this is what can bring the reptile to life. This is what brings everything, the most mundane, the stone, which is what the philosopher's stone is. When we look into the thing, knowing this, having reconciled and being able to autonomously justify the implications of this in our consciousness with our uniqueness, reconciled it with uniqueness, then all of a sudden we can come into interaction at any moment autonomously, perpetually with things. And if we treat them according to the implications of infinity with complete selflessness, with listening, without assumption, all of a sudden will arise from these things the breath of life. Suddenly the reptile speaks. It tells us where it rises from the page. It tells us what it would climb up onto. We can be unstuck in time. Like Vonnegut, we can think of what would somebody say 40 years before or 50 years in the future. And all of a sudden we realize, wow, if I treat that thought just like Shakespeare treats the dream, or Dali treats the dream, if I treat that according to the implication of infinity, if I really just listen to that thing without assumption, if I don't say what I want to say, but just listen to it, suddenly I give it the breath of life and it could speak to me. And so let's jump around here. Metamorphosis, obviously, this is like one of the most massive and important works, but it's the truth that, actually, I'll just leave that. This is Ovid related. Ovid's Metamorphosis. Um, I wanted to show you. Well, here's the truth of mirror. So we see in the puddle, um, or the rippled surface, we see that just light itself, and this is the recurring appearance of mirrors, or in this case, mirroring in water. The consequence of the light in the reflection is equal. It can affect us. If we see in a mirror somebody standing behind us with a knife, we will jump. Energy is equivalently consequential, and it's a manifestation of infinity. We see here the Ra like bird, which becomes one of his subjects. He calls it a still life. This is the therianthropic concept that has always been running into all mythologies, all religions, and spiritualities, which is that it's a manifestation of oneness. We are that which we see in the bird. You will be if you look selflessly at an animal, if you look somehow, whether it's by sacred right fatiguing you or exhausting you or putting you into shock or having taken an entheogen, if you somehow manage, or autonomously by comprehending a message, if you somehow manage to look selflessly into an animal too, just like we said, a stone or a 2D image, if you look selflessly into that thing, what will arise is an irrefutably particular way that you're related to it meaningfully at that moment. By giving it that much of self, by looking selflessly, you reveal that you reveal to consciousness the meaning, which is the way that you're irrefutably particularly related to only that thing, only in that moment. And that being completely new, that being otherwise impossible, redefines you. It creates a truth which is both the truth, one of the one aspect of the uniqueness of the bird or the animal, one aspect of the uniqueness of you, which is shared in that moment, and in that way it transforms you the one to the other, and that transformation is also metamorphosis or metamorphosis in Greek, which is what Ovid was discussing, this transformation of the self into the other when we achieve the religious function. Yeah, he shows us in multiple layers that the abstract world, the world completely embodied in energy, these are equivalent and consequential. Um, we see here, uh, he shows us St. Peter's in Rome. I'll give you the key to heaven. This is the key. It's infinity in the 2D. And you can keep going. I mean, you, uh, yeah, it's all pervasive. I was hoping. He also shows you that this is a matter of life and death in the eye. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen, but yeah, Belvedere. Belvedere. Down here on this piece of paper, there's a cube. It's also the infinity cube in this guy's hand, but here drawn in the 2D are he circles the 2 points. He circles the 2 points where in the cube it creates a cross. Those are the points of opportunity. That's what allows the front. It's that indefinableness, which, for instance, allows the back of this one to become the front of this one. At some point in the 2D, there's a point of opportunity where the one thing, which is exactly what it is, can also become the other thing. The center, that point of indefinableness, is the top and the bottom. We see in this dragon, of course, a hint to the Ouroboros. And we see the Ouroboros, he's eating his tail, but also in the infinity sign here. These things, he's very clearly showing us what he's talking about. He's creating infinite staircases and showing, Mobius strips, because he's showing us that it's in this, and he's also using his technique to show us a magically interconnected world, one where more can happen than you could do on your own. That this was the thing that inspired so much beautiful work that made existence and interaction with the world around him gratifying and nourishing. Yeah, so we'll continue to talk freely about M.C. Escher, one of the great artist prophets, um, one of the great teachers of the function of religion, the function of art, um, and the metaphysical and pastor of a metaphysical message, which he found most beneficial, which he found that was what humans seek, um, and which we all have the capacity to achieve. That we just have to come to recognize that it's in our everyday life all around us, these manifestations of the infinity, which, if we can understand the implications of, if we can autonomously justify in self and perpetuate the state of mind reflecting it, which would bring out of the world around us the limitless in the specific. Thanks for joining. Keep an eye on MC Escher.